Hey guys, it's Leo Stargazer. Welcome to your weekly astrological reading. So this week, I noticed a couple things of importance. Mainly, the moon is changing signs on its way to Cancer, where it will be a new moon on Monday, next Monday. So that's important because I really personally enjoy following the moon on its cycle. I love following the moon forward. And when it's on its way to a new or full moon, I take those phases seriously and try to incorporate them as much as I can. The other two also pretty important things happening this week are that, first of all, Mars will move into Virgo on Monday the 10th. And that same day, Mercury will move into Leo. So we have two planets changing signs on the same day at the beginning of the week. So that's really going to affect us for the rest of the week. Just a little moment to tell you about my approach to astrology. I approach astrology from an archetypal perspective. So what that means to me is that I look at the stars almost as if they were tarot cards. I look at the patterns almost as if they were cards in a spread. That's kind of how I see astrology, and that's also how I interpret it. So I also like to include tarot reading with different kinds of astrological events, or even just daily or weekly readings to combine them with the astrology to give me an even deeper understanding. So that's just a little bit about my approach before we get into what this week means to me and how I interpret it. So, like I said, the moon continues to change signs on its way to Cancer, where there will be a new moon. So for me, that's definitely saying prepare for the new moon. This is your chance to completely clear your way, clear your brain, clear the way to peace and understanding so that you can be ready for a new beginning of some sort. Depending on what house is in Cancer for you, that will really be more important to understand kind of what this new moon could mean, or at least where the focus might be best placed for you. But in general, the new moon in Cancer is going to speak to maybe some new beginnings in terms of nurturing, new beginnings in terms of your inner world. There is a potentiality for defensiveness, but I think it's much more focused on nurturing. At least that's how I see this new moon. As far as Mercury and Mars changing signs, I think there's some important pieces there. I think Mercury and Leo communicate your pride, communicate your strength, communicate your fire. That's definitely how I view that. Mars in Virgo is almost a little bit of a counterbalance to that in a great way, I think. I think it's saying, do all of that, but stay detail oriented. Stay focused a little bit on structure. Think about the generative nature of your passion, but definitely don't lose sight of the details in the fire that you're gonna bring. So I think that's the key for the week for Mercury and Mars. There are a couple other transits, especially that Mercury and Mars do as they leave Cancer and Leo, and as they enter Leo and Virgo. So in the daily readings, I gave some specific advice for those little transits, but I think in general, Mercury is saying communicate your pride, communicate your fire. And Mars is saying that's awesome, definitely do that, but assert your need for details, almost fight for your right to include structure as well. So those are the focuses for that. So like I said, I like to incorporate a tarot reading for certain phases of astrology, and a weekly reading is no exception. So I usually interpret each day, and then I try to choose a major arcana reading, a major arcana spread, and I go from there. So I'll choose a major arcana card, and then I will do a spread based on that card. I get these spreads from Labyrinthos. It's a website, labyrinthos.com. It's also a really wonderful app. I am not sponsored in any way by them, but I find her spreads very valuable and informative. And I think that especially her major arcana spreads, the major arcana spreads I find on Labyrinthos are very informative. And also this week I chose the Visconti tarot deck. So this is the original tarot deck. And I chose this one since we're approaching new beginnings. I want to start from the beginning, from the most traditional version that exists, at least that we know of right now. So I chose the Visconti deck. Some people choose to not use reversals when they're using this deck or any Marseille deck, which is the deck that followed this. I prefer to still incorporate reversals. So I may not use the actual literal reversal interpretation for each of these. Again, everything is subjective to the reader. And so for me personally, I do like using reversals, even in these older style decks. I will incorporate the upright interpretations into these, especially if I'm not using the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. But in general, I like to use reversals in all of my readings where it is appropriate, with the exception of Lenormand and Thoth readings. I choose to not use reversals there, but here I will be. So if you're not used to seeing reversals in a Visconti deck, or if you're not used to seeing reversals in a Marseille deck, I will be doing those. It's just a personal thing, and I feel like I get a more complete vision of what I'm trying to interpret that way. So we'll be doing this reading with that in mind. So the major arcana card I chose this week was Strength. So it might be obvious, Strength is usually associated with Leo. I think Mercury moving into Leo is really important. I also think it's important for us to find our strength this week so that by the time the new moon comes next week, we are prepared for that and feel empowered enough to move forward. Also a way to kind of embrace Mercury's journey through Leo and figure out how and what we should be communicating from our most deep desires. So we'll go through the strength reading now. All right, so just like for any reading, I first shuffle the deck. I don't change my shuffle style for the weekly readings in any way, but I definitely do still incorporate an intention that I will repeat to myself. So, as I begin to shuffle and as I continue to shuffle, let's all think about that intention. The intention I chose for this week is self-vibrancy. So while the sun doesn't do too much this week, there is a sense of the internal vibrant nature of your internal shine coming from Leo's fires this week, especially because Mercury's entering Leo. So I wanted us to get in tune with our vibrancy, our personal vibrancy, in order to figure out how to express ourselves best. And so I felt that the strength card and the intention of personal self-vibrancy was really important. So as I'm shuffling and as we're taking a moment, let's take deep breaths. Let's guide ourselves to our intention. Think about our own personal vibrancy as we continue to shuffle the deck. All right, so once I put the deck into chaos, And then I bring it back into wholeness. I will hold on to the deck and repeat my intention as many times as feels appropriate again, and begin to draw the cards. So for the strength spread, the first card is self-perception, and the card I draw is the Emperor. So the Emperor in the self-perception position shows us that we definitely think we have it under control. We definitely feel our power and our authority. And that's great. That's a great place to start a strength reading from, from a place of full, unadulterated empowerment. There are, of course, some negative sides to seeing the Emperor in the self-perception position, but I think in this case, we're talking about strength. Seeing a little bit of structure there is beautiful. So then the next card that I draw is the Ten of Cups in the challenges position. So that may seem a little contradictory. However, the way that I interpret it is that it's showing that the Ten of Cups energy, which is union, celebration, again, vibrant love, things like that, I think it's showing that we may have challenges seeing the need for celebration. We may have challenges seeing love around us and embracing a celebratory nature. That may be a challenge we need to overcome. So that's how I read that position. All right, so then the next card I draw is in the skill position. And that card is the Queen of Wands. Awesome. Queen of Wands, we have fire energy, we have creative energy, but with a complete control, a guidance from our internal femininity, a guidance from our intuition. We are wielding our passion appropriately and beautifully. And that is a skill that we can definitely use. So anytime you are called to, anytime you need to use your skill set, think and know that you've got the passion wielded. You can control it. Then the next card I draw is in the blessings position. And that card is the reversed Queen of Swords. So, again, that may seem contradictory, but the way that I look at it is it's calling for pragmatism. We can understand that sometimes, for some of us, our coldness can actually be a blessing. Our stoicism sometimes can be a blessing. And I think in this case, that's kind of what the cards are showing me. They're saying that as a balance almost to the fiery energy of the Queen, a little bit of the coldness of the swords, still with a focus on the self, I think is calling for maybe a little bit of balance. It's also another Queen, so we have this balance of femininity, bringing feminine energy in, and maybe balancing light and dark, cold and warm. I think definitely is being called for here. That could also be a little bit of Mars and Virgo speaking through this card. So we'll trust that and move on from there. The next card I draw is in the Wisdom position. And that card is the King of Wands reversed. So in the spread, right below the Queen of Wands is the King of Wands. But he's reversed. So maybe what this is saying is that some of our wisdom is potentially locked behind our ability to wield passion. Maybe there's a little bit of freedom, a sense of rebellion we need to apply to our Wands energy of passion and drive. Again, referencing Leo, here we go, 2 Wands. I think this is what the reversed king is talking about in the Wisdom place. I think it's saying your wisdom maybe, again, is in balancing out some of this Wands energy. So we want to be able to wield this passion. The passion unwielded is not strong. We look at the Strength card and she's in full control over her passions. And I think seeing the Queen upright and the King reversed, right on one on top of the other, I think it's definitely hinting to the need to wield our passion. And then the Queen of Swords is definitely saying, bring some of that stoicism and pragmatism in. And so our final card is potential. And the card I draw is the 5 of Cups reversed. So for me, the way I interpret this is pretty clear. The 5 of Cups reversed is showing us moving away from focusing on negativity and focusing on loss and picking up what's good, what we have, what we know works, and moving forward. Leave the negative, embrace the positive so fully that it propels you forward. I think that's what that card in the potential position is showing us. So how does this apply to strength? How does this apply to the archetypal major arcana strength? For me, I think it's clear with all of these royal cards, you have 2 queens and a king. I think it's clear that and an emperor. So you have the emperor, 2 queens and a king. I think we're talking about authority. Your personal authority. I think that is the key for the week. Utilizing your personal authority. Besides those ruler cards, the only other 2 cards in the deck are both cups. So we're talking again about emotional resonance, creativity, the flow, water, these kinds of things is how I interpret this. So I think if we use our authority to stay in balance, if we trust our authority to stay balanced, I think that we can easily pick up any positive stuff around us, leave all the negative, grip onto the positive, and move forward towards this new moon with a positive approach. You've finished one cycle, whatever was left, you've left, and you've picked up what's good, and you're gonna use your passion and fire energy with a whole lot of structure to move forward. And that's how I'm approaching this week, you guys. I think trust your authority, trust that you know best, perceive yourself as that emperor, but really embrace the passion of the Queen of Wands, the passion of Mercury and Leo, and express yourselves to the fullest. And most importantly, leave behind anything negative in this last moon cycle and move forward and prepare for the new moon coming up next week, which we'll discuss then. Thank you guys so much.